I'll do is I'm just actually recording the meeting right now. What I want to say is my name's Rocco Bonaccore. I'm the collaboration specialist within Cisco, so I look after anything voice, video and conferencing from a Cisco perspective, and that's including WebEx. Today we've got Justin Kelly, who's our collaboration engineer within Cisco, and Justin will be running through a demo. We're not going to do death by PowerPoint. It'll be a pure demo session today, so feel free to ask questions. We've put everyone on mute and we'll basically answer the questions accordingly while Justin's going through the demonstration. Thank you. Over to you, Justin.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction, Rocco. And before I launch into this, just want to let you guys know I'm working from home, as is everyone at Cisco at the moment, and you may hear dogs barking in the background. I apologize for that. But let me start this off just by sharing my screen so you can see everything that I'm doing. And where we want to kind of start here is everyone in Education Department WA has a WebEx account already. And the way to kind of access that account is through educationwa.webex.com in your favorite browser. This is basically like your homepage or your portal, right? When you get to educationwa.webex.com, you just jump into the sign in button here. And what that'll allow you to do is sign in using your department email address and password. All right, so I'm going to log into my dashboard here. Oops, sorry, just sent me straight into a meeting and I cancel that. Apologies. So yeah, basically when you log in, this is the page that you'll be greeted with. As you can see, it's got a little dashboard here. Every person on the WebEx platform has their own personal meeting room. So this is defined by a web URL, which you can see there. And it remains the same for every single meeting that you want to have. So in order to start a really quick and easy WebEx meeting, all I need to do is copy that link, send it to someone. They'll click on the link and away they go. Right? It'll automatically launch a WebEx meeting. If they don't have a client or application installed, it will try and use either a web browser or it will attempt to automatically install a piece of software onto your computer that will allow you to join the meeting. And just a note on that, so students at the department will not have a WebEx account. They don't need an account to join a meeting. It's only if you're being the host of a meeting do you actually need an account. Okay, so once you guys have logged on here for the first time, what I would love you to do is load up the desktop application by just going down to the download section here, hit the download button. It's going to load up the WebEx application, which looks very much like this. This is WebEx Meetings. And the way it's laid out is basically, similar to what you just saw before. Here's my always on personal meeting room link. I can just hit copy if I like. And you can see if I was to paste that into Microsoft Word, for example, this is that same personal meeting room link that you saw in your dashboard. Really easy. So I can start a meeting immediately, or I can schedule one in the future. But the way I like to kind of schedule these meetings is using Outlook, because we all use Outlook. It's got a really good kind of calendaring system. And what we can do is all the education department computers have this plugin installed in Outlook. So you should have the option to, for example, I'm going to add my personal room. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see that better. The easiest way to join this meeting is just to click the big green join button, right? Now, if you don't have access to a smart device like a laptop, iPad, iPhone, then you could still join this meeting from a phone. So there's a couple of different dial-in numbers, Sydney and Melbourne. All you'd need to do is dial the number and enter the access code, and you'd also be a part of the meeting. Now, if you are lucky enough to have a video conferencing system at your school, you could also dial the video conferencing address, and that would also get you into the meeting. Okay, so lots of different ways to join. I recommend sticking to the big green join button because that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, now when it comes to inviting students, I'm going to go ahead and just invite a few people here. So a couple of ways to do this. I could manually add all the students in, or what you can also do is use groups within Outlook. So I've created a group called Test Group 2, and within that group has got every single member of my class. So I don't have to go and type them in individually every time because I've created a group. Now, you might be wondering, how do I create groups in Outlook? Well, the way to do it is go back to your main home screen in Outlook, hit the New Items button, More Items, Contact Groups, and from there I can say this is my Year 5 class, and I can add all the members from the address book, or I can manually add those members in to the class. So that's a nice little easy way to make your life easier when you go and schedule and invite people to these meetings. A really common question is, what if I don't have email address for my students? So a couple of different things there. You could effectively invite the parents if you have their email contact. Alternatively, as long as you've got that web link that's unique to your personal meeting room, so for example, I just went into the WebEx Meetings app and I hit this copy URL, as long as you can get that link to the kids somehow, whether it's through Connect, whether it's through a SMS, as long as they can get that link and click on it, they're ready to join the meeting. So I'm going to show you an example right now. So I've clicked on that and it's ready to join the meeting. So before I do this, Rocco, any questions in the chat yet?
No, everyone's pretty quiet. So look, because there's only a few people on the call, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. Happy to take any questions that you prefer. Just to Justin's point about that link is unique to yourself. So basically treat it as a room address or the address to your classroom. So everyone that wants to turn up to a lesson to your classroom just needs that link to get into your classroom. Now, Justin further down will show you how to actually lock and unlock the classroom and how that works. But yeah, just treat it as an address to your classroom.
Exactly. And Rocco made a good point. You've got to be conscious about who you're letting into your class. And that's where we get to the ability to lock the room. Okay, so before we get there though, I've clicked on the link. Before I jump in and press the big green button, I want to make sure that I've got my audio and my video settings correct. So here, for example, I want to make sure, in my case, I've got a headset. So I want to make sure that that's selected. in both the speaker and the microphone settings. And in my case, I got the integrated webcam, and I've also got an external external camera that I want to make sure is selected. So once you're happy with all those settings, you just hit the Start Meeting button. And this is basically what you're going to be greeted with when you first start the meeting. We're waiting for others to join. What I might do before we go any further is I'm going to get Steve, who's a member of the class, to join as well. Just give me a minute while I load that up. Okay, so Steve has now joined. And in a minute, we should be able to see his video pop up as well. Now, what I can do from here, it's giving me an error around bandwidth, so that's why I'm not seeing any video at the moment. But effectively down here at the bottom of the screen is the main controls that you're going to be using within your meeting. Right, so the most common one that you probably want is the participants menu. So this allows you to see a full list of all of the people who have joined your meeting, and it gives me some control over these users. For example, muting is very important. We don't want too much audio being put into this meeting because it can be very distracting when you've got lots of audio sources. So it's very common for me to use the mute all function, and I might unmute specific people if I want them to ask a question. So just be aware, make sure that you're controlling the muting of the users in the session. I can also choose to stop video on particular users. I can chat. I can move them back into a lobby. So if I'm not ready for Steve to join the class, I can evict him back into the lobby where he'll be put into the waiting room. And you can see a little orange icon comes up here, allowing me to admit him back into the meeting. So no questions at this stage?
No questions at this stage, Justin. Look, we're just showing you the basics to start off with, so what meetings can do from a meeting center perspective. Later on, we'll actually go through a little bit more detail in Training Center and one of the more advanced features that you can use depending on what type of classes that you want to run.
Okay. So there you can see we've got the video of the student popping up, and you may not want to show the video of the students. That may be a bit distracting. So we do have some options here in the meeting settings, in the meeting options here, to have more granular control over what the participants can do. So in this case, I want to stop them from being able to turn on their video. I can do things like enable or disable chat, notes, file transfers, etc. If I want to lock this session down a bit more, I can do that from the meeting options menu.
So Justin, we've just had a question come through about, can we control muting on participants so they can't unmute themselves?
Very good question. So the way I kind of frame this is WebEx meetings is our kind of flexible meeting platform, which is really easy to use and start. But it does allow people to unmute themselves, share content into the meeting. It's basically relies a lot on meeting etiquette, which we know sometimes students might not have. So in these cases, we'd use a more advanced version of WebEx called Training Center. And what we'll do is we're going to cover that at the end once we've shown you all of the basics in the WebEx meetings platform. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is show you the sharing capability. Now, this is probably one of the most important features within the platform. What I can do is share the contents of my computer so that all the other students can see what I'm sharing. Now, there's also another option menu here which says, I want to optimize this for really crisp and clear text and images, or I want to optimize this for motion and video. So for example, if I wanted to show a YouTube clip to the students, I would make sure that that motion video was selected along with audio, and then I'd go ahead and share my screen. Conversely, if I wanted to just share a PowerPoint presentation, I'd stick to optimize for text and image, and then I'd go ahead and share my screen. Scrolling down to the bottom here, you do have option just to share a particular application, but what I find most easy for me is just to share the entire screen.
So this is probably to one of the questions we've just had is what are the ways of sharing when I'm the host? Do I need to, I can't log into another platform. If, for example, I'm using Chrome and I can't log into Firefox as well. I'm running a info session meeting with staff at my school. So it's more about what are the multiple ways I can share? How can I share multiple applications? And are there different ways of sharing those applications?
Yeah, sure. So I think maybe the problem that you're seeing is that if you share a particular application, as soon as I switch to another application, the share is going to disappear. So that's why I tend to prefer sharing the entire screen. So then they'll be able to see everything that you're doing on your screen, no matter what application you choose. I hope that answers the question.
And Justin, the second question is around whiteboarding, and we might cover whiteboarding into more detail in a minute, but it's about whiteboarding on an iPad where users on an iPad can annotate. Some of the guys on the call are experiencing where they've tried to share whiteboards on an iPad, but the iPad hasn't been able to annotate, but they can annotate it on a Mac.
Okay, yeah. So we do know that there are a few feature differences between a laptop, which obviously has all the features, and a mobile device. I personally don't have an iPad to be able to test that with, but we can look into that one. Rocco, let's make a note to have a play with that and see if we can get it working.
Sure, guys, what we'll do is we'll take that back. I haven't seen it myself, so I will take it back and try it out, and we'll come back to you with an answer.
I mean, that does lead on to a really good point. In terms of the teacher running the meeting, I highly recommend that you would use a laptop rather than a mobile device. And that's purely because we've got all of these meeting options. We've got more control over the meeting when we're coming in from the laptop client. Okay, moving on. So that was a really good segue into whiteboarding. Thanks for that question. So all I've done is I've gone into the share menu. I've scrolled all the way down And you can see on the bottom right-hand side, we've got the ability to do a new whiteboard. I hit share. And what we can see here is all of the capability of the whiteboard. For example, I've got text. I can say maths problem. I can draw lines. So I'm going to draw a triangle. I've got shapes. I've got squares, circles. I can just do free drawing. And I can erase that as well using the eraser. This is a really handy one here, is the arrow. So if I want to just point out to the students, hey, this is what you should be looking at, this is what we're focusing on, I really like using the arrow. Just so they can follow along with what you're trying to show on the whiteboard. Now, what we can do then, we can start a second whiteboard if we like, just through that same sharing menu. I can create a new whiteboard as well and start drawing. So number 2, oops, 12 apparently, number 2. And you can see at the top here, I've got a menu that I can switch between the different whiteboards. Okay, I can rename those whiteboards if I like. Now, there's also a button here at the top called Allow Annotation. So when you select that, it means that the students are able to participate in the whiteboarding session. Otherwise, the students have to individually request permission to be able to annotate on the whiteboard. Now, at the end of this whiteboarding session, I can just close it off from the top here. It'll ask if I want to save it, and I can save it as a PDF, and I can share that with the others later. In this case, I'm not going to save it, and I'm just going to close all of these out, and now we're back to just the regular video screen. Okay, so that's sharing. What I might also mention is that you can annotate or whiteboard on top of a file. So if I bring up a PDF or a Word document here, so this is a Microsoft Word document. What I can do, if I hit the annotation button on the left here, it brings up the whiteboarding capabilities, and I can start using the whiteboard, you know, kind of on top of an existing file. And again, I can save that at the end as a PDF. Okay, so that's sharing. Any questions on sharing? Nope. Okay. Let's go to recording. So this is another really important feature, right? So if you want to distribute this to students who couldn't make the session, we can record it. Pretty simple, this menu item down here, I can hit record. They'll get an auditory and visual cue to say that the meeting's starting to record. Now, let's say we take a 5-minute break. I might just pause the recording if it's not relevant, and then resume the recording again. Okay, and at the end of the recording, I'm just going to hit stop. Now, what happens by default, if I go up into the meeting menu, recording settings, by default, those recordings are stored in the WebEx cloud platform. And I'll show you how you can retrieve those recordings in a minute. But alternatively, you can also record it directly to your computer. And that'll save it as a file on your desktop, and you can upload it to something like Connect at a later stage. But let me show you how we retrieve those recordings. So from within my dashboard, so for you that'll be educationwa.webex.com, we've got this recording section. You're going to be able to see all the recordings that you've done in the past, how long of a duration were those recordings, and what's the file size if you choose to download that recording. So I'm going to click on this one here. And in fact, you don't need to download it. You can run it directly from the web link. So you can just share the web link. Nothing needs to be downloaded. It'll load up dynamically. And what you can see is we've also got a transcription. So everything that was said in the meeting or class is saved here. So I'm going to hit play, just so you can see the experience of a recording. And basically what you're going to be able to see is all of the video, all of the content, and also closed captions. So as someone speaks during the meeting, we've got closed captions comes up. So that's pretty cool. If I hover over the preview bar here, I can see what was going on. It's kind of like YouTube. So I can see, okay, Sam was looking at the dashboard at this part of the meeting. So I want to flick to that and just see what he was looking at, instead of having to wait and just kind of wade my way through. Oh, cool. So I can see that Sam was looking at the user page at that point in time. Alternatively, you can also search through the transcription. So let's say we want to find where someone said network. Okay, that was said 3 minutes 22 into the meeting. I'm just going to click on that, and it's going to take us directly to 3 minutes 22, where someone said network. So this is really powerful. Any recording questions?
No, Justin, we do have a question in regards to when sharing content on your screen and we go to Chrome and we want to show a video or YouTube clip. How does the audio and video work when you're sharing?
Yeah, okay. So let's go to share. This is the way that I would do it. At the top left here, you've got this menu item to say whether I want to optimize for crisp and clear text and images, or do I want to do it for motion, video, and sound. So I would definitely go to motion and video, make sure that sound or audio is checked as well, and then I'd go to share my screen, and I can launch into something like a YouTube. Easy as that. Now, once you've finished sharing your YouTube, what I would do is I would stop sharing, change it back to text and images so that it's nice and clear for the rest of your presentation. Okay, so there's a trade-off between, nice motion and nice text and images. Okay, so just showing the last few features within the client. So the ability to chat. So I can chat to just one person, Steve, or I can change that to I want to chat with everyone. So chat's pretty basic in its functionality. What else we can do? If you click on this kind of three dots here, you've got all the other extra features that were commonly used. So let's say I want to lock the meeting. Let's say the whole class has rocked up and I don't want anyone else to be able to join. I want to lock that meeting for security purposes. So what that means is if let's say I kick Steve out, I'm going to kick Steve and I'm going to get him to rejoin. Just give me a moment here. Because I've locked my meeting, he's not going to be able to get straight in. He's going to be sitting in the lobby and you're going to get that kind of orange icon come up saying, hey, do you want Steve to be able to join? If you do, just click that admit button. Okay. Some of the other features which are useful for a teacher is polling. So with the polls, I can create either a multiple choice poll or a short answer. In this case, I'm going to hit short answer. I'm going to go new. I'm going to say, what did you think of this week's book? And I'm going to add that. Now we can change some of the settings of these questions. So I can say I want 5 minutes per question. And then I can just go open poll. That's going to pop up on the screen of all the students, and they're going to have the ability to answer the question. So I've just brought Steve.
Justin, your audio has just switched. Hi, Justin, your audio is still off. Hey, Justin, your audio is off, sir.
Apologies, guys. Did I drop out in audio just then?
Yeah, you did for about a minute or so.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Rocco?
Yeah, perfect.
I can't hear you. 1 second. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you perfectly.
Apologies, what's happening here? I can't hear you. As long as you can hear me, that's all that matters, right? Okay, so that's polling. I'm just going to close. I'm going to close this down because I think I've shown all the basic functionality of WebEx meetings already. You get the ability to save, the chats, the polling, the results into a file at the end. So that's really good for just saving all the content that you did during that class. Okay, so moving on. If that was good, but you feel like you need more control over the class, such as being able to control who's muted and not allow them to unmute themselves, that's where WebEx training is going to come in. So if you log into your educationwa.webex.com and go down to WebEx training, this is where you have the ability to schedule a training session, or just have an instant session. Now I'm going to hit instant session because scheduling would be for a specific time. I just want to launch into one right now. So I'm going to hit instant session. What's it called? Grade 5 maths. Start session. Okay, so guys, this is what WebEx Training Center looks like. Now, because I haven't scheduled this in advance, I'm just going to bring in a student who's going to be Steve. And what you'll notice, it kind of looks the same, but there are a lot more features available on the screen. Sharing's similar, but really where we have more control is in this right-hand side, in this kind of participants area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get Steve to join. Okay, Steve has now joined the session. And Steve has the ability again to turn on his video. You can see Steve's popped up there. Now, the main differences in Training Center are things like along down this section of the participants menu, people have the ability to raise their hand. So if I've muted everyone using some of the participant settings along the top here, I can mute everyone, I can mute on entry. What they can do is they can use this raise hand feature so that I know they want to ask a question. I can right click on them and I can manually unmute that person and allow them to ask a question. So right there, we've got more control over the muting of people within a training center session. Likewise, if you want to do a quick poll or a show of hands, who agrees or who doesn't agree, instead of having 20 people type into the chat, you can just get them to use some of these tick yes and no icons down here. There's some basic emojis, and this one's really important as well. This exclamation mark is called the Attentiveness Indicator. So if you want to know who's actually in the meeting, who's paying attention, this will be able to tell us. So the way I'm going to demonstrate this is Steve's going to actually go browse the internet now. So he's browsing the internet. You can see the attentiveness indicator has turned to red. And there's an exclamation mark next to Steve saying this attendee is not paying attention. What I can then do is Steve goes back into the session. You can see that his attentiveness has become 100% green again. So that's kind of handy. What other features that we can do within here? We've got a whole lot of controls over what the participants can do. So in this case, here was a common example. I didn't want the students to be able to see each other in the attendee list. So what I could do is just disable that. So they cannot view the other attendees. All they can see in this case is the number of attendees. So let's say there's 30 people in the class. They'll be able to see 30 people, but not the actual individuals. If I wanted to see the video of the students, but I didn't want the students to be able to see video of other students, I can disable this thumbnails. So view video thumbnails. I could disable that and they wouldn't be able to see each other's video. But if I was happy for them to see each other's video, I can just tick that thumbnails button there. If I wanted to disable video altogether, I could just untick the send video option. If I wanted to control whether a student could share their screen or a file, I can use that kind of control sharing tick box there. Now, if I wanted to limit the chat functionality, let's just say I really trust these guys. I want them to be able to chat amongst themselves during the session. I'm going to hit enable chat with all attendees, or if you know that these guys are troublemakers, I can disable that and the chat will only be between the teacher and the students. Now, another part of Training Center that's really important is the ability to do group breakout sessions. So if we have, let's say, 30 people in this class, what I can do is that I can open the breakout session control panel. I can set up the assignment either manually into groups, or I can do it automatically based on either the number of breakout sessions or the number of people that I want in each breakout session. So let me give you an example. 30 people in the class. I want 5 people in each breakout session, automatically randomly assigned to each session. I've just hit that, set the number of attendees to 5. I've hit OK. It's going to send all of the participants into their own private chats for them to do group work. Within those private sessions, they've got all the capabilities to share their screens, chat, and work together. At the end of that breakout session, we hit stop and they all come flooding back into the main video section and they can share their findings from the breakout session. So this is a really good way to do group work. And while they're in there, I as the teacher can hop in and out of the different breakout sessions to make sure they're on the right track. So it's pretty powerful in that respect. So I'm going to stop talking now because I think that's all of the Training Center features, the basic features that I wanted to show you guys.
Does anyone have any questions at all or anything at all in regards to Training Center that they'd like to
Let me
raise?
just jump back in because my audio's, I've lost audio. One sec.
Okay, so we've got one question. One question is how to lock Training Center, and what I'll do is it's in the same way as you do with Meeting Center, but I'll let Justin do that once he's back on the call.
Just once again, there we go.
Perfect. So Justin, one of the questions was, how do I lock Training Center?
Sorry, Rocco, I've got a problem on my speakers.
So one of the questions is, does Training Center have the same options as meetings, whiteboards, screen sharing, and applications? Yes, it does. So the differences mainly between Training Center and meetings is more in regards to functionalities around Q&A, breakout sessions, and involving the students from a hands perspective and raising questions and so on. So those are probably the main differences between the two. But from a functionality of screen sharing or whiteboards and applications, it'll be exactly the same as what you see in meetings as well. So Justin, are you there?
I can actually hear you. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so one of the questions was, how do we lock a training center?
Oh, how do we lock?
Yep.
Okay, yes, it is possible. And sorry, I've just exited out of it, but along the top menu, within session options or meeting options, there's a menu item called restrict access. So that effectively achieves the same thing as locking the meeting.
Now, Justin, the other question I was just explaining to the guys the difference about meetings and training center, and it was more around does training center have the same feature levels as what meeting center does? Does it allow you to do the whiteboards, the screen sharing, and the applications that you do in meeting center? And what I said is just it does everything that meeting center will do. It just provides you the extra functionality when you're looking at Q&A and when you're looking at breakout sessions.
Yeah, that's correct. So you do have the whiteboard still within Training Center. You've got the ability to share your content. Yeah, pretty much it's a more advanced version of WebEx meetings.
So I'm happy to take any other questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for today. It's probably been a long day for everyone. So thank you very much, but I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you, guys. And yes, thank you so much for all your time today, because I know today and tomorrow is pretty much taken up with just webinar after webinar, and we really do appreciate it. Guys, I'll have the recording of this and other sessions, these sort of sprint sessions, they'll be up tomorrow morning. And yeah, if you've got any other queries, please don't hesitate to be in contact. Thank you very much for all your time.
Thanks, everyone.